What's up, guys? It's Alex here again, coming to you from my New York studio. This is part 4 of the series I've been running, basically about how I am hitting the reset button on my personal brand, how I'm showing up online. And I would say that this part 4, is the most important one of this 5-part series. After that, I'm just going to launch to a bunch of my ideas that I think are helpful for creators and creative people. But I would say that this is kind of the turning point. This is the climax of the series and the story of why I'm doing all of this. And if you want more background, go ahead and jump back into the channel, watch the other 3 parts if you want more context. But today I am talking about the foundational purpose, the fundamental problem that I am working to solve and help to work through my work. This is like the core idea that I want to work on in myself and also help others. And that is this idea of defeating insecurity. And I think this idea is so important, at least to me, because if I'm being honest, I feel like insecurity is the foundation of 99% of human problems. People will debate me on this, and probably rightfully so. There's, the Maslow's hierarchy. There's that foundational piece of just survival that is probably a bigger problem. But I think once you get past the basic needs of surviving as a human being, I would argue that insecurity is the foundation of every one of those other problems. And so it's something that I feel really needs to be addressed more clearly, and I don't feel like anyone is talking about it in the way that it should be. And so that's why I'm talking about it in this way, and that's why I think I feel very called toward this mission of helping people defeat insecurity by living that as an example through my own life. My watching myself defeat it is the best first step. And so I want to talk about it here, and I'll get started by saying why this is important. Insecurity is everywhere right now. I think we are living in arguably the most insecure moment in human history. And the reason is we're all staring at our phones, we're all staring at social media, we're all staring at media generally, and it's reflecting back at us our deficiencies, it's reflecting back at us our failures, it's reflecting back at us all of our shortcomings all the time. And essentially, this world we've created for ourselves, it's this kind of weird machine that it's always kind of looking back at us and showing us how we're falling short. And, there are really great parts about living in a society where we all can express ourselves pretty freely, where we can build things, where we can, have a control of our own destiny in a lot of ways. But then, there are other parts of it that maybe aren't as great. I just read a quote around whoever invented the mirror did a massive disservice to the human race. Because before we had mirrors to stare at ourselves into, before we were looking at ourselves and, kind of gathering vanity in a way, we were a lot more free. And now we're obsessed with ourselves in so many ways. And when you're obsessed with yourself, a lot of times you're obsessed with the perception other people have of you. That's what you're actually obsessed with. And I think right now we live in a time where that is magnified more than ever and more than anything. I think that that is the fundamental problem that we are all struggling with if you are online, and specifically if you're trying to create things that will go out online. I think this is just like the core problem, in my opinion. And so I feel like with that, and I've had this belief for a few years, and I've been wanting to tackle this problem for a few years. The problem is I've been too insecure, which basically explains why I haven't come to this place. And I think that insecurity, it drives us to behave differently in our creative work, and it drives us to behave differently in the pursuits of our life. We will fight for different things when you are operating from an insecure place versus a secure place. And I would argue most of the things I've fought for in my creative life online, I had a whole other YouTube channel that had millions of views, and now this one has none. This is barely going out to anybody. But this, I will take that trade off every day of the week. because this is really me. And what was so cruel about the other way of doing things is you're chasing millions of views, all these accolades, these outside perceptions, maybe from other people. And what it really is validation. It's a fight to feel secure in my own skin. It's a fight to feel good in my own skin. And that's a really unhealthy way to live. And honestly, it's a really corrupting way to be creative because you're just creating out of desperation, which that's the second video of this series. It's all about that, this idea of desperate creativity. And so I want to talk about this balance between operating from a space of insecurity versus security. And I think if you're watching this and if you're interested in, creativity, personal brand, how you're showing up online, what you're making online, chances are you are tempted all the time to operate from a place of insecurity and to make decisions for yourself and your work through insecurity. You start seeing what other people are doing, you start seeing what quote unquote works online, and you start to bend a little bit. You start to compromise your inner desire for what you truly want to make in order to bend and to become whatever works online. And that might feel small and that might feel insignificant, but when you blow that up to the scale of the internet and all of these millions of people, that 1% every day ticking further and further away from their true identity and their authentic creation, those little ticks over and over and over again, you can start to see how we've compounded the internet to be a very inauthentic, insecure place over time. And so I'm a really firm believer that we no longer have to do this. We no longer have to show up in our lives, but specifically online and in our creative work in an insecure way. And the reason is because we've done the past 15 years of building these platforms up, using insecure methods to build them up, and we've gotten them to critical mass. More people watch YouTube than watch Netflix. Like, the platforms have won. And now we've reached critical mass of audience on all the platforms. And so I would argue now there's enough people anywhere you want to be to show up the way you want to show up online. So for me, that's YouTube and that's Substack. These are the two places that I want to spend my time. And this is the two places where I want to meet like-minded people and then grow a much more interesting and much more vibrant online life. Because up until this point, we've all been operating of like vanity metrics, like let me get more numbers of people who I'll never know or never see. And I think that's becoming a little bit outdated and a little bit like everyone's kind of learning the truth that that is not a fulfilling way to show up online. And so now we have this really cool opportunity. And for me, I want to take that opportunity to create in a much more secure way where I show up here talking to this camera, just off the cuff how I feel about things. And I've learned a lot of stuff through my career that I think I can share that could hopefully be helpful to people on this channel, but also will draw interesting and like-minded people to the channel to where we can start to actually use the internet in a much more interesting way of building community, true community, and not just invisible metrics that basically further make you insecure and not actually want to be your authentic self. So I'm really interested in that for all of us. And I think that that's a worthy mission. So I think to close this out, how do we overcome insecurity? And first off, I think it's kind of a 3-step process. And there's a lot more on this I'm going to talk about on this channel. I would love to spend a lot of my life talking about this and overcoming this work and really diving deep into this work, but I'll give the preview now, the high level of what I think. So insecurity, I think the foundational idea of it is that you don't like something about yourself and you are shying away from, or you're trying to hide from parts of yourself that you don't like very much. And that's interesting to me, at least. And at least I noticed that in myself. The things I was insecure about, the things I felt deficient in, that's what made me feel insecure. That's what made me feel uncomfortable in my own skin. And then I started examining, like, well, why don't I like those things about myself? What about those things make me feel like I'm not enough or like I'm deficient? And What's really interesting is I think most of these things that I realized for myself, it was my self reputation with me, my reputation with myself on certain parts of my life where it's like, well, you're not consistent enough, or look at so and so, they're doing all this stuff, but you're not good enough to do that stuff. And I think that self reputation, how you meet up with yourself, how you see yourself, and how you feel in your own skin is a much better compass of your life than outward reputation. Everyone is so obsessed with their reputation online or in the world or whatever. How do other people perceive me? And I think we're taught from a young age, like, be polite, have manners, do your thing to get a good reputation from the world. And is there something wrong with that? Not necessarily. But I would say the thing that's wrong with it is that you're seeking first the outside perception of you versus your internal perception of you first. And I would argue the more of a high self reputation you have, the more you respect yourself internally, the more other people in the outside world will respect you too. And the more you're desperate to get respect from people outside of you, the more or the less they'll respect you because they smell your desperation, and that's hard to respect. So I would say the first thing is examining, like, what are the parts of myself I don't like? The second part is understanding, oh, the reason I don't like those is because I have a lousy self reputation in that area of my life. So I don't trust myself there. I feel like I'm falling short there, like I'm not good in that area of my life. So why would I like myself? Why would I trust myself? Why would I feel confident or secure there? You don't have a good reason to. And so lastly, the last thing is proof that you can change those things. And this is important because you're not changing for anybody else. You're changing for you. For me, like an example of this, my family, serious history of alcoholism. My dad died from liver cancer because he drank himself to death, essentially. And for me, I started drinking, especially through the pandemic. I started drinking way too much, not probably, a scary amount for me. And I had to come to this point when I started realizing, man, I really don't like myself. And then I started looking at, like, okay, I don't like myself in this area. Then I looked at my self reputation. Why don't I like myself? Because I'm not keeping my word to drink less or to stop drinking or to have control in this area of my life. And then I said, how can I have control? How can I stop drinking? How can I change this aspect of my life to where I feel good about myself again? And the only answer to that question, it's not from how anybody on the outside world perceives me. It's how I perceive myself when I look in the mirror. The only thing I could provide there is proof. Proof is the only thing that will win your self reputation. So, proof that I could go a week without a drink, proof that I could go a month without a drink, proof that I could go a year without a drink, until eventually I proved to myself, this is who I am. Now, that little domino has ricocheted through my life to realize, man, I can do really hard things, and my self reputation is really strong now. And so, I would argue, whatever that is in your life, whether that's through expressing your creativity, whether that's through a health thing, whether that's through a relational thing, your self reputation and how you perceive yourself will be the determining factor. And the way you change your self reputation is through proof of showing up, doing something differently enough times to where you have proven to yourself, you respect yourself enough to say, I am different now and I can be different, and I'm actually becoming who I want to be, and I don't care what anyone thinks of it except me. And all of a sudden, when you start living that way, a lot more people actually start respecting you and who you are and your choices because you're doing it for yourself. So it's this really virtuous cycle. And ultimately, it comes down, this is the cycle of defeating insecurity. It's not liking yourself, examining your self reputation, and providing yourself proof that you can change. The more you're on that cycle, that is how you defeat insecurity in your life. And that's my mission, to help people move through that. And so, moving forward on this channel, I'm going to be talking a lot about these ideas, but a lot of other ideas in the creative world, but also just in life, that I think can really help us move forward in this space. So that's it for this video. I'm going to wrap it up. The final video in the series is what I'm going to be moving forward on, and moving forward into the channel is just a preview into what the channel is going to be all about. Also, what my Substack is going to be all about. So for now, if you enjoyed this, if you're interested in building a personal brand that is from a secure, authentic place, please subscribe to the channel. Sign up for my Substack below. I'm really wanting to build community of cool, like-minded people who are on this path as well. Please join me there. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope that we can all keep pushing forward to a more secure space where we all feel good in our own skin, how we're showing up online, but also just how we're showing up in the world, and ultimately how we're showing up for ourselves on this world in the short amount of time we have to be here. So I'm Alex. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.